In this video, we're going to talk about one of the ways that you can go about note hypercustomization on DeepCura. Now, there's a very simple way to go about it, and it's with this Teach DeepCura Your Writing Style button. And we have another video that goes into this method in a little bit more detail, but just quickly, this is the method where you just give DeepCura 3 sample patient notes and maybe your default physical exam template, and that's it. That's what the AI uses to kind of copy your note structure and make your new notes based on that. Now, this method is not for you if you're very particular or very specific about what you want in terms of formatting and really specific wording and other things. If you're very particular, then it's worth spending a little bit of extra time and just really creating a template that's very specific to you. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in this video. So we're going to go over to these Google Docs documents to show you in detail what that looks like. And eventually we're going to, the reason it's in another document is just for comfort, just to be able to set it up at first. And then we're going to save it in DeepCura with this Create Your Own AI Instructions button. You can just save it in your library as you see here, where I have a bunch of other different templates that are already saved there. So let's take a look at these templates. Now, you always want to start with an initial instruction, and this gives the AI something to kind of focus on from the beginning, and it just knows what the general objective of the prompt of the template is. So that's why we always want to have this, and it should be something like similar to this, where you tell it, generate a psychiatric note, medical note, clinical note, whatever you want to say, based on the provided transcript. And you can add some other small details instructions that would apply to the general note, like maybe you wanted to avoid being overly verbose, just very straightforward, not super descriptive, and to strictly use technical medical terminology if you find that it doesn't do that enough for you on its own. And we tell you use the following structure just to make sure that it knows it's not supposed to change things around or change the order anyway. I wouldn't recommend giving it a very, very large paragraph of instructions here as an initial instruction. I would keep it as simple as possible. And that's a tip that applies in general to the AI. Be as simple as possible in your instructions. And you're also going to hear me repeat this a bunch of times, but you have to keep a balance between being very simple and very specific as well. You need to be specific with the AI. Otherwise, I'll show you a couple of examples of what can happen when you're not specific enough. So after you have your initial instruction, you go on with each of your headers and maybe subheaders where you're going to add instructions for each of those sections, right? So let's take this current psych meds instruction where I tell the AI to please include all current psychotropic medications being taken, including name, dose, routes, etc. Right? So here I could have just said, please include all psychotropic medications being taken or currently being taken and not said anything else. Now, if I do this, it can definitely give me that. It's going to give me all current psychotropic medications being taken right now. But how it gives them to me, that could potentially vary every time I submit the note, because I'm not specific about if there's certain pieces of information that I really always want to have there. Like every time I want the name, dose, route, frequency, and if the patient is currently taking it, right? So if I want all of these details every single time, I have to include it in my instruction and be specific about it. Otherwise, maybe sometimes it's going to include the name and dose, but not the route and frequency, or maybe sometimes it's going to include all this without me having to say it. But the point is, it's not going to be consistent with it every single time if you just leave it open to interpretation. So now I go on with all other headers, and keep in mind that within the instruction for these headers, you can give instructions on formatting, so paragraphs, numbered lists, bullet points, etc. If you want something to be in bold, probably the headers, you can put 2 asterisks before and after the title, and that's going to make it bold. Make sure there's no spaces in between the asterisks and the actual words, because then it's just going to leave asterisks. It's not going to make it bold. And if you want something in italics, it's underscores, right? So you'll also notice that I have all these little symbols right here, these XML tags, they're called. The reason for these tags is they're called delimiters, and you've probably also seen me use square brackets instead of those XML tags. Again, they're the same, it's the same concept. They're delimiters. Their objective is to delimit each instruction. Is just a way to kind of separate out the instructions for the AI and to make everything as clear as possible, right? So one thing that you might feel compelled to do, but it's not necessarily going to be very useful, is if you're very repetitive in your instructions because you find that the AI is not giving you something you want. So let's say you want the AI to be very detailed. So you have your template and you're telling it to be detailed about something, but you submit it and it's just not giving you enough detail. The solution is not going to be to repeat the be detailed instruction 4 times. That's not necessarily going to be better. What you should try instead is probably changing the way you're wording the instruction, because it just probably means that the AI is not understanding what you want. If it's not following your instruction, just try to change your wording, try to come at it with a different perspective. Sometimes you think something is very obvious, but it's not going to be obvious to the AI. So maybe something that means something to you, it doesn't mean the same thing to it, or it's going to mean the same thing to it sometimes and not all the time. So just, that sounds a little bit confusing, but bottom line, just change your wording slightly if it's just not following your instructions well. Now, another reason why you might not be getting enough consistency in your instructions, especially with the length of things, especially if the AI is not being detailed, the problem might be that your notes are too long, and we have a separate video on this. There's a limit to how much the AI can give you back in the length of the notes that it can give you. So if you find that it's just not being detailed enough and your notes are also very long, try to break up your template into 2 parts and generate them separately. Now, we have a separate video on this as well that kind of shows you that the actual difference that this makes. So you can go ahead and check that out if you think that could be your problem. Now, you'll notice here I separated out the instructions for the HPI itself in different sections, but it's not something you necessarily have to do. It just depends on how you like your HPI set up. You could also just delete all of this and just say, give me a detailed HPI. And that's it. You don't have to be too fancy about it. It's really up to you and how you prefer your notes to be set up, right? So the point is to turn your patient notes into instructions, if that makes sense. So now here I have the rest of the headers where you'll see more instructions. For example, here you can give an instruction similar to this one where I tell it to write next to each symptom if the patient endorses or denies the symptom, and if it's not mentioned at all, to just write denies. So what it's going to do is literally just write denies or endorses at the end of each of these symptoms. And it can also, if this is something you're interested in, it can also put in checkboxes where it can just check the box if that's something that you think you could be interested in. So there's a lot of possibilities. So if there's something that you are not sure if it could do, but you would love it, just try it. Honestly, there's a lot of things the AI can do. It's just a matter of trying it out. And DeepCure allows for a lot of flexibility. You can really get everything you want out of it. It's just a matter of trying and finding the right instruction. So you can tell it, give it instructions on what to do if something isn't mentioned or something is denied. So for example, here in allergies, please include a list of drug allergies. If none, write no known drug allergies. Or if none or not mentioned, write no known drug allergies. So this covers the fact that if whether the patient doesn't have allergies or it was not mentioned at all, to just write to this, right? Now, another thing that you should know that you can do is, let's say you always have a particular sentence or paragraph written the exact same way and you just wanted to leave it exactly the way it is. You don't want it to change it. The instruction for that is very simple. Let's say you want it to always say, patient agrees to the treatment plan. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to say, do not modify this sentence. And then it's just going to leave it the exact same way every time. Now, you should also know a few other things that you can ask for within the template. You can ask for ICD-10 codes, CPT codes, and E&M codes. It's important that if you want E&M codes, you also separately include this instruction. Sometimes it's not going to do it on its own, even if you ask for CPT codes. If you want E&M codes, you have to ask for them specifically as well. So just include that in your instruction. And ICD-10 codes, you can ask for a list of to-do items prior to the patient's next appointment. You can ask for example, here I have a patient instructions letter addressed to the patient describing the instructions for them. You can ask for treatment plan suggestions. I could go on and on. This could turn into a 40-minute video. But the most important thing is also, we are also here for you. We can support you if you're setting up your template, you're trying it out, and you're not entirely happy with the result. Reach out to us, and we'll help you modify your template. And just as a last step, once you're done setting it all up, just save it over in DeepCura. You're just going to copy all of it and paste it here, and you're going to give the instructions a title. So I'm going to just call this my psych intake and save it, and there it is. When I already have an audio attached here, I'm just going to attach it again for you there. I'm going to open it and just click on my psych intake, and I am done. So there you go. That's how you set up your templates for your notes. And actually, just as a last thing that you should know that you can do is, if you have your default physical exam template with normal findings, default findings that you like, you can just leave that and add an instruction like this one where you tell it to just change those normal findings for abnormal ones in the case that there's abnormal findings within your patient encounter. This instruction in particular tends to work pretty well. And both of these templates are in this Google Drive folder with a bunch of other templates, and you do have access to this folder. So definitely let us know if you have any questions. We are here for you if you need help.